learning outcomes. After studying this module, you shall be able to know what are the theories of criminal behavior, what are biological and physiological theories, what is psychological theory, what are sociological approaches, what are geographical theories, and what are economic theories. Theories and causes of crime. There are ample amount of factors that are evident to place the individual at risk of becoming criminal. The theoretical attitude conferred below try to describe the relationship among risk factors and criminal behavior. No agreement is present on the relative merit of these theories. It may be possible that the causal mechanisms proposed below are more or less weighty for different individuals. Mostly programs which are held to prevent crime are based on the theoretical understanding of the crime. Therefore, before focusing on practical reactions, it is important to understand the range of theoretical explanations of crime and the vision these descriptions portray. There are the three models of criminal behavior are psychological models, sociological models, and biological models. Additionally, classical, neoclassical theories, economic theory, and geographical theories are also there. All infer different methods of control. It is quite difficult to isolate these three categories from each other completely, as all three factors perform a role in the expression of behavior. Furthermore, psychological science includes various disciplines like biological psychology and social psychology. So in all three domains, psychological principles are applicable. This results in narrowing of definition for each of the categories, but it does not simplify the discussion herein. Now, classical and neoclassical theories. Descriptions of crime and punishment were established in the second half of the 18th century. In fact, these theoretical descriptions developed as a reaction of enlightened thinkers and political reformers to arbitrary systems of justice and barbarous codes of punishment which prevailed up to the end of the 18th century. They asked for a legal system that would guard the interests of criminals and shield their rights and freedoms. Contract theory of the origin of state, which was propounded by Rousseau, used to be believed by them, that is, regulating the manner of free individuals who were bound to one another within the society by a fee and legal contract between free and equal individuals. According to Rousseau's doctrine of social contract, men were absolutely free and independent in a state of nature, but restrict a small part of their freedom and independent in a state of nature, but restrict a small part of their freedom because of social contract so as to protect the benefits of union. Second is classical theory. Beccaria, an Italian thinker, was profounder of the classist explanation and was inspired by the literatures of scholars like John Howard. Beccaria, Essays of Crime and Punishment in 1764 maintained that human nature is rational, free and governed by self-interest. B. Social order is based on consensus and social contract. C. Crimes in infringement of the legal code and not of social law. D. Spreading of crime is limited and is to be ascertained through a due process. E. Crime is caused by an individual's rational motivation. F. Crimes should be judged by a jury of one's peers, that is by the rational and equal individuals. The judges should have a guidance of clear and systematic legal code. And G. Principle of restraint should be focused while applying any penalty over the offender. That is, imprisonment should be limited to a prior agreed fixed set of penalties. Four vital principles are present in the classical school of criminology. First, the rights and freedom of an individual must be secure. Second, same punishment should be given to all individuals who have committed the same crime. Third, a definite penalty should be attached to each crime and that should be invariably inflicted as crime in a judicial generalization. Fourth, punishment should be restricted to the social need. Its infliction is necessary so as to prevent others from committing the same crime. Now second, Beccaria's classical explanation. First, man's behavior is purposive and unbiased and is based on pleasure-pain principle. Second, penalty should be allotted to each crime and the amount of penalty should be dependent upon the injury caused to the public welfare by a crime. Pain should outweigh any pleasure resulting from commission of crime. Third, sentence should not be very severe and deterrent, and it should also be proportion to crime, predetermined, prompt and public. Torture should be abolished. More use should be made of imprisonment instead of corporal punishment, and a fair trial should be ensured. Fourth, application of law should be rationally applied to all citizens. Courts should only distinguish between innocent and guilty and subsequently commend the set punishment. Now the next theory, that is the neoclassical theory. In 1810 and 1819, revision of the classical theory is done by the British neoclassicist criminologists, and they state that A. Objective circumstances provides for judicial discretion. B. The concept of minimum and maximum penalty was introduced. C. The principle of extenuating circumstances got recognized. And D. It shows that the concept of equal justice is not too realistic and thus recommended giving significance to age, mental condition and situations in giving sentence to the criminals. Besides, this school initiated to deal with the trouble of causation, unlike the classical school, by building exceptions to the law. Diverse causation was implied. However, this school also has not been considered a scientific school of criminology. Biological and physiological theory. Biological theories focus on the biological factor for the causes of crime. It includes physical body, involvement of inherited genes and evolutionary factors, roles of hormones or the brain structures, and they have an influence on the individual's involvement in criminal. So this physical flaw could be because of first hereditary, second neurotransmitter dysfunction, third brain abnormalities that were caused by either of the above, improper development or trauma. This was all given by Rain in 2002. Now the first factor under this, hereditary. Factors responsible for human behavior used to pass from one generation to the another. Crime causation for any realistic consideration used to be linked with the interplay between the hereditary, biology and the social environment. Second, psychosurgery, also called as brain surgery. Brain surgery to control behavior has seldom been applied to criminal behavior. In the year 1930s to the late 1970s, around 40,000 frontal lobotomies were performed. Lobotomies were used to treat a series of problems from depression to schizophrenia. It has never been found that a court-ordered lobotomy as a sentence for a convicted criminal, in spite of being broadly discussed that lobotomy act as a potential treatment for criminal behavior. Lobotomies were also used for people who were considered an annoyance because the demonstrated behaviors characterized as moody, or they were children who were defiant with authority figures such as teachers. Lobotomy is done by uniting the prefrontal cortex from the rest of the brain, either surgically or in the course of the transorbital lobotomy via a sharp instrument that was introduced in the eye socket between the upper eyelid and the eye. In this method, the patient was not anesthetized. not even children. The psychiatrist strike the end of the instrument with a hammer to disconnect the nerves in the frontal lobe of the brain. After behaviors were changed but at an elevated price. Today, the lobotomy has been obsolete, but medications used to control behavior, although some view the use of medications as equivalent to a lobotomy. Psychosurgery appears to be an option that will most likely not be put into use due to the dishonor linked with it. Third, chemical methods of control. In an attempt to control the crime rate, the major use of pharmacological treatments are in two areas: castration for sex offenders via chemically and pharmacological interventions for addicts of drug or alcohol. However, addicts can stop the medication and return to the use, whereas we can closely keep an eye on sex offenders, and there is some evidence that this policy has been efficacious. Sometimes mentally sick people ordered to take medications to treat their mental illness in the criminal justice system. Other pharmacological interventions to manage crime seem plausible and are being investigated but not as much used. Now the other factors: deep brain stimulus is used for some disorders such as Parkinson's disease but has yet been investigated for criminal behavior. Biological theorists have believed changes in diet to deal with criminality and better relation between parents. There is also the famous genetic XYY combination that was once thought to be a marker for a criminal behavior, but as it turned out, these individuals were found to be less intelligent or more prone to have learning difficulties as opposed to being criminal types. There have been numerous studies that shows a link among antisocial personality disorder or criminal behavior and hereditary. Yet, there are no policies being implemented to sponsor for selective breeding, genetic testing, etc. for criminals. It is still not possible to have an envision of a policy of genetic testing for criminals, as the variables are not that stable as to predict which set of gene combinations that whether the examined person is biological criminal type or not, although this is certainly a possibility. Weather and crime. Weather varies constantly and reliably related to crime, and weather in turn is related to temperature. Positive correlation is found between temperature and violent crime, which is moderated by factors such as time of day, day of week and season. Cohen and Rotten have established that temperature is related to crimes such as assault, property offences, domestic violence and disorderly conduct. It acts as chemical and environmental precursors of crime like nutrition, eating habits and environmental contaminants related to violent and disruptive behavior. Now, physiological theory. These are the figures illustrating types of criminals. Lombroso stated that the criminal is a separate group, a group which is sandwiched between modern and primitive humans. He argued that physical shape of the head and space conclude the born criminal. To locate physical differences or abnormalities, Lombroso studied and calculated the bodies of executed and deceased criminals and examined living inmates as well. He further alleged to have found a range of bodily features that predicts criminal behavior like long arms, large teeth, ears lacking lobes, lots of body hair. Also identified characteristics of particular types of offenders. Second scientist, William Sheldon, he used body measurement techniques so as to make a link between body type and personality, and then summarized 4 basic body types and related temperaments and personalities. First is body types. People may possibly be divided into 3 body shapes which match with 3 different personality types. First is endomorphic, fat and soft, who are used to sociable and relaxed. Second, ectomorphic, that is thin and fragile, who are introverted, restrained, and last one is a mesomorphic, that is muscular and hard, who used to be aggressive and adventurous. Now Sheldon, by means of a correlational study, observed that several convicts were mesomorphic and they were the least probable to be ectomorphic. Now psychological theories. Psychology presents enough of perspective on the causes of crime. The theories investigating the correlation among crime and individual personality, social factors, cognition and developmental factors, and they are of prime significance. These physiological theories have different degrees of focus on individual, family, group and societal psychology. There are much of the diverse psychological models presenting criminal behavior, ranging from early Freudian notions to later cognitive and social psychological models. From psychological theories of criminality and human behavior in general, quite a lot of fundamental suppositions are made, and these are: first, the primary element of study in psychological theories is an individual. Second, the chief motivational element that compels behavior within individuals is its personality. Third, normality is generally defined by social consensus. Fourth, crimes are a consequence of abnormal, dysfunctional or improper mental growth within the persona of an individual. Criminal behavior may be intentional for the individual as it addresses certain felt needs. Sixth, a multiplicity of causes may have been there for defective or abnormal mental processes, that is, a diseased mind, improper learning or inappropriate conditioning, etc. It was suggested from the last postulation of psychological model that a range of diverse reasons present for criminal deeds and that general principles targeted at the individual would be effective for crime control. However, it is also assumed that the model that psychological criminal type has a subset which is previously defined as sociopath or psychopath and currently known as antisocial personality disorder in the DSM-4. In early life, such criminals show signs of deviant behavior and is associated with self-centeredness, short of empathy and a tendency to see others as tools for their ends. Control for such individuals should be further severe and general public policies may not be that strict to control the activities of this miniature split in criminals. Intense sentence do not significantly decrease crime rates, especially in such cases. Thus, other psychological principles have been applied. In expressions of cognitive behavior, psychological principles, rehabilitation and relearning, retaining or educational programs for offenders offer psychologically based methods to manage crime. These methods are relying on teaching an alternative functional response which is part of the cognitive behavioral methods in place of a formally dysfunctional one as opposed to simple punishment. These programs have proven to be successful. Example is Matthias in 1995 and can either acquire inside the prisons or outside of the prison. So any form of retaining, re-education or re-entry program is dependent on psychological principles of criminality and reform. However, rehabilitation programs have barely been conducted in jail or prison. There are numerous such programs which seem to be beneficial, especially for drug and alcohol offenders. Likewise, any form education such as DARE program and recent efforts to curb bullying in schools relies on these methods. Also, altering the surroundings of the offenders, such as providing more opportunities, would be a psychological behavioral principle designed to cut crime. For instance, it is a well-known social psychological principle that those situations which diminish self-consciousness and self-awareness lead individuals to being less restrained, less self-regulated, and more probably to act without considering the consequences of their example. This was given by Diner in 1979. Placing the mirrors in stores can increase self-awareness and decrease shoplifting. Currently, on the basis of personality and social variables, there have been efforts to build up methods to spot individuals at risk for assured forms of deviant behavior together with criminal actions. Such psychological variables can be identified in the school or at home at an early age and include such disorders as learning disabilities like ADHD, depression and others. Proper efforts need to be made to recognize and treat these problems, as many individuals with these problems often go on to demonstrate criminal behavior or have legal problems later in life. This role to diagnose and resolve the issues comes under the forms of psychological crime control policies. Now, next, sociological theory. Sociological principles and psychological principles of criminality are intertwined and technically not independent. Along with psychological theories, there are numerous sociological formulations of the cause and control of criminality. We will define sociological notions of criminality as follows. First, it attempts to link the matter of the individual's criminality with the wide social structures and cultural values of society, familial or peer group. Second, how the opposition of all of such interacting groups lead to criminality. Third, how these structures, cultures and contradictions have historically been developed. Fourth, the current processes of change are that these groups are undergoing. Fifth, criminality is viewed from the social construction of criminality and its social causes. Now, theories by various scientists. Ésmile Durkheim's traditional sociological theories. He proposed that crime was a consequence of anomie, a term meaning normlessness or a feeling of a lack of social norms, a lack of being connected to society. The term was made popular by Ésmile Durkheim in 1897. Durkheim originally used the term to explain suicide, but later sociologists used the term to describe the dissociation of the individual from the collective conscious or the criminality resulting from a lack of opportunity to achieve aspirations or by the learning of criminal values and behaviors. Therefore, criminality results by the failure of properly socialized individuals and by unequal opportunities between the groups. Sociological policies to control crime would advocate stronger and harsher penalties for serious crimes such as murder, rape, or more effective law enforcement. Again, sociologists accept the realities that crime is a social phenomena that will not disappear no matter how many interventions are enacted to control it. Socialists note that of every 100 felonies committed within the United States, only one is sent to prison. A vast number are unreported, and of those that are reported, only a small portion goes to the trial. If a justice system is to work properly, it must be able to rely on its law enforcement system and judicial system to bring to justice and prosecute serious offenders. The purposes of imprisonment include punishment, rehabilitation, deterrence and selective confinement. All of these should be utilized where appropriate for the individuals. It was said by Hurster and Eglin in 1992. Now, responses from geographic theories of crime include the following: using lighting and better design of pedestrian flow of minimize crime in an area at night, or planning licensed premises so that patrons do not come in conflict as they leave, and using information about the distribution of crime in a neighborhood to develop an area specific crime prevention plans with the local community. Now, next theory is of the economic theory. The economic theories of crime is based on the notion that individual responses rationally to the cost and benefits of criminal opportunities. Thus, factors that increase the likelihood of apprehension or severity of punishment or reduce the expected benefits such as improved educational or job opportunities can reduce the incidence of crime. The economic framework can also encompass other theories of crime that provides a richer understanding of rationality and decision making, such as biological basis of impulsivity, the cost of crime, such as the social capital in antisocial peer networks, and benefits of crime such as local economic conditions. Now, response from economic theory to crime includes improving engagement in education or employment so that relative benefits of crime are reduced via legitimate economic activities, and increasing or decreasing criminal sanctions to change the relative disincentive associated with particular criminal activities. Now, we will conclude with the summary. There are three broad theoretical models of criminal behavior: A. Psychological models, sociological models, and biological models. Additionally, classical and neoclassical theories, economic theory, and geographical. Biological theories about the causes of crime focus on the idea that physical body, inherent genes, and evolutionary factors, brain structures, or the roles of hormones has an influence on an individual's involvement in crime. Importance of theories exploring the relationship between crime and individual personality, social factors, cognition, and developmental factors. Some social theories emphasize the relationship between social structures such as language, ethnicity, and class, and criminal behavior. Geographical theories of crime prevention that focus on the physical environment tends to focus on such things as how urban planning, building design, and design of public space affects the crime. Last, the economic theories of crime is based on the notion that individual responses rationally to the cost and benefits of criminal opportunities.